going on. And during the process of this experience, I was gone complete time for a little bit over 80 minutes.
Okay.
So, that's kind of hard to grasp, 80 minutes, because I can sit back and it seems like the experiences that I had could have just been minutes. It wasn't like it was
No concept.
almost, 80 minutes I'm just hanging out. The concept of time it wasn't there during that time, and after that initial contact with my granddaughter and watching the first responders, I found myself kind of like ascending. So it was a very slow ascension. It was, I was in like this pink type cloud. In the clouds, 3 silhouettes, and the silhouettes were of like human form but with wings, so I assumed that they were angels, just going in a circular pattern. There was 3 of them, and during that experience and recognizing that, I basically discovered that there was another being with me. It was a young woman. She just came out and just kind of like stood in front of me, but I stood float, it just being in front of me. So, and she had long red hair, and, I always make fun of my nose because, you can tell who my dad is and who my brother is based on my nose. And this woman had my nose. So back in 1973, I had a sister who was stillborn. So, and she was born with red hair and, the same type of characteristics. And this person had those. So I believed that it was her that came to me. And during this process, basically, all this stuff going on, the silhouettes and the clouds were still there. Basically, she told me my job on Earth wasn't done. Didn't give me much of an explanation. She just said I had to protect people, and that it just wasn't finished for me. She looked like she was in her 20s or 30s. I don't really, I've never seen her before, so I don't know, because like I said, I was only 2 years old when she was born. And the way I described her was, my mom says, was exactly how she remembers her when she was born. Just the long red hair and the facial features and that kind of thing. So, my assumption was that this could be my sister. So during that process, I remember communicating, like asking if this person knew my purpose, or, what was I supposed to do? What was the next step? And basically, I was just told it wasn't my time. That right after that, I just got suddenly blown back awake. It's kind of hard to describe. Then after that part, I found myself in the parking lot, up like probably 30 to 40 feet above the vehicles. I could see my wife talking to somebody. And apparently it was state troopers had just arrived, and they were basically talking to her about, they're going to call it. They weren't going to, continue. I saw myself come out down the stairwell on the stretcher. There was a medic on the stretcher with me performing CPR. They brought me out, and I witnessed all this. And then I saw my wife continuing talking to the state trooper. I could identify where the vehicles were, the ambulance, the fire trucks, how many were there, all the details that I would never have known, And then I just came back in the ambulance immediately, probably at that same time. And they yelled out of the back of the ambulance that I was back. Okay. And surprised everybody, and and that was the first time that I came back.